Hello there and welcome to a special edition of Biz First in Focus. We're coming to you, of course, from the office of the United Nations here in Colombo. Today the topic of discussion is about a pest that caused much controversy in the agricultural field and much of a crisis here in Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka's agricultural sector. And to discuss about this issue, we've got with us today Mr. Alan Ruski on my immediate right. He is the Principal Technical Coordinator of the fall armyworm at the Food and Agriculture Organization here at the United Nations. And also with us is Dr. Vijay Ratna. He is the Assistant Food and Agricultural Organization representative here in Sri Lanka. Hello gentlemen, and a very good evening to you.
Good evening.
So first things first, Dr. Allen, I'd like to direct this question to you. It's very important for us to first identify this pest, to identify the issue so that we can come up with solutions to address this. Could you give us a brief introduction on the fall armyworm and the damage it has caused and the crops that it has affected and so on?
Certainly. Thank you. So the fall armyworm is an insect, pest of many crops, over 80 crop species worldwide, and it originally comes from the Americas, the tropical, subtropical areas of the Americas around Central America, Mexico, where it's been in maize fields and other crops for hundreds of years. The news here is that only recently did it move from the Americas first to Africa 3 years ago. In the beginning of 2016, it was first reported in Western and Central Africa, and then quickly spread through natural spread all across Africa and into the Near East. Now, mid to late last year, it was first reported in Asia, first in India, and then quickly spreading again naturally into many countries of Asia, including, of course, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Thailand, now Vietnam, and China. So it continues to spread naturally. The pest is an important pest of maize, particularly corn, because it's a favorite food. It will feed on maize wherever it's planted, but it also feeds on many other crops, especially other grasses such as paddy, sorghum, millets, etc., sugarcane, and it will even feed on other crops including cotton, vegetables, etc. So this is one of the problems of fall armyworm, is that it can feed on so many different crop species. It is very mobile, as I mentioned. The adult moth can fly 100 kilometers in one night, and one moth can fly 1,000 kilometers in her lifetime, so quickly spread to many crops, making it very difficult, well, first of all, really impossible to eradicate. Many farmers and governments think when it first arrives, well, we'll just eradicate this pest and we're done with that. But really, that's not possible because it's now everywhere in all those plant species, living and reproducing year-round. And second, the mobility means that it will move back and forth even within a region. So we can't eradicate it. What it does do is cause damage to maize in the leaves and in paddy. But the yield loss is often, in fact, less than we think. Many farmers see that damage, that charismatic damage on the leaves. They get all torn up. They look horrible if you're a farmer or if you're working in agriculture authority. But in fact, many studies show that we shouldn't panic when we first see this type of damage. Farmers shouldn't panic and authorities shouldn't panic because panic induces often inappropriate actions. And that's what we've seen repeated in many countries across Africa where we've been working for 3 years and now across Asia, is that we try to help authorities and farmers take appropriate actions because the damage is there in the range of 10 to 20% maximum in terms of yield loss. But the good news is that it's been managed sustainably by farmers, including smallholder farmers in Central America, for hundreds of years. So there are lots of experience, research, and practices that we know of, and that's the role of the FAO, is to help spread to farmers and to authorities the lessons learned and practices where it's been controlled sustainably. And that's
so Alan, when it comes to pests, this is nothing new to Sri Lankan farmers. Sri Lankan farmers have been dealing with pests for quite a long time. What makes the fall armyworm different from other pests?
Well, because it's a new pest. It's never been seen before. That causes a certain type of damage that is alarming, and because it feeds on so many different crops. Many pests are much more specific, and so if you control it on that crop, in peppers, for example, you control it, and it's done. This one is in many, many different crops, and that's the threat, that it will move from maize onto paddy, and paddy onto vegetables, and keep moving in different crops. But again, the good news is that there are ways to manage it, so let's not panic about it.
Dr. Vijay Ratna, here in Sri Lanka, how many crops has it affected? How is the situation here on the ground?
In Sri Lanka, this fall armyworm was detected only in October last year, and then it was identified morphologically at the beginning, and then sent samples to Kabi in Germany to identify biological, and it was confirmed. And this is the first time, as Alan pointed out, and at that time it was affected, only maize was affected. But our worry is next season we don't cultivate that much of maize, so it may move to other crops. So we really have to have a control measure so that it won't spread to other commodities as well.
Of course, farmers will be wary of planting maize the next season. Is this a good move to cultivate less maize next season in response to this issue?
Usually in a yellow season, we cultivate something like 10% or maximum 20% of our cultivation. We usually go for something like 80,000 hectares for a Maha season, and for a usual yellow season, we cultivate less than 10,000 hectares. So it's because of the rain pattern. And that lower extent of cultivation may result this insect to move to other commodities. So we have to be very careful about it. So we are taking action on that. We went to field yesterday and then had discussions with the Department of Agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture, and initially they requested technical assistance from FAO. So we worked to our headquarters and managed to get the emergency response project for technical assistance, and now we are directly dealing with Department of Agriculture and Ministry of Agriculture. Happy to say that we are getting all the assistance from them, so we are trying to implement that program. So we are trying to use the knowledge the Alan and all other officials have in FAO to disseminate as soon as possible, and also we try to reduce the indiscriminate use of pesticides and try to use natural enemies to fight the fall armyworm.
Well, Alan, you've been in Sri Lanka for a week. What do you see? Do you see a difference in the situation here in Sri Lanka and other countries? How is Sri Lanka faring in their response?
Sri Lanka is one of the best countries I've seen, and I've been in many countries across Africa and Asia, in the sense that it's very well prepared, has tremendous institutions, researchers, infrastructure of public institutions, and farmers that are very proactive in the response. The fact that it was only discovered in October and then finally confirmed later on, and we have a project already up and running and functioning, is truly amazing in the UN FAO world. Usually things don't happen that quickly, and it demonstrates the proactivity of both the authorities here in Sri Lanka as well as the office here in FAO office in Sri Lanka. So exemplary in the way they've been proactive and seeking sustainable solutions. And we've had many interesting conversations the last few days with high-ranking authorities who understand that short-term solutions of dousing pesticides once or providing compensation are not sustainable solutions. We're not going to be able to do that for many, many years. And truly engaged in alternatives, such as the research that was already presented to us yesterday, conclusions on the level of biological control, naturally occurring organisms that kill fall armyworm, and how farmers and government can help that process, increase the populations locally in farms, and ensure that, as mentioned, don't apply the pesticides because they kill the natural enemies of the fall armyworm. So what practices you need to take at a policy level as well as a technical to manage it sustainably. So, and we were just talking in the office, this is a tremendous opportunity in Sri Lanka because of the proactivity and the forward thinking of everybody involved to help quickly engage authorities, policy, farmers, very technical, in sustainable management practices. So I'm very happy.
Well, we are having our discussion on the fall armyworm, its effects, and how we can respond to this situation here in Sri Lanka. We'll be back after this short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching BizFest in Focus. Welcome back. You're watching BizFest in Focus. We're in discussion this evening with the representatives of the FAO from the United Nations regarding the fall armyworm, commonly known here in Sri Lanka as the Sena caterpillar. Getting back to our discussion, Alan, you were speaking about how we should combat this pest and how we should take appropriate measures instead of panicking and resorting to wrong measures that could affect us adversely in the long run. How can we effectively manage the fall armyworm or the Sena caterpillar, commonly known here in Sri Lanka?
Okay. So there are many practices, again, that we've seen in other parts of the world that work very effectively, especially for smallholders. And there are three major areas. One is first, be comfortable, don't panic, recognize that that damage you see in the leaves in a few plants is not going to lead to tremendous yield loss. So really understanding the relationship between the infestation and the yield loss, so you don't overreact and don't apply pesticides unnecessarily. Two, do take advantage of the naturally occurring biological control agents that are already in the field. And we heard the report yesterday, for example, a report from the Ministry of Agriculture, a study that's already been done in Sri Lanka showing 80 to 90% natural parasitism of the eggs of fall armyworm in certain areas. So that means that there are little wasps that go and lay their eggs in the eggs of the fall armyworm and kill them, and then stop the population. So we know that these organisms include the parasites, predators, other insects that eat the fall armyworm, and pathogens, bacteria, fungus, virus, that kill fall armyworm are in the environment. So it's important that we all, and especially farmers, understand the role that these organisms play, encourage them, and there are practices you can take, and this is one thing we want to work with the Ministry of Agriculture and also with farmer field schools with farmers to try very local practices of attracting these natural organisms so they effectively do their job very well. And finally, there are other local substances that farmers can use that are also locally available, free, very effective, including botanicals. Neem is well known here in Sri Lanka. It's a plant that obviously produces a biological botanical pesticide. It's effective against fall armyworm. It can be produced locally, even in communities, but there are also many other plants that need to be explored. This is the type of research that we need to do in Sri Lanka and determine which plants can be used by farmers locally and how to extract them and use them locally. So there's a whole array of opportunities there that we know work. We see farmers doing them in other parts of the world that we need to validate and try here in Sri Lanka so that farmers have that type of confidence that I've seen other farmers have, that when they see a little bit of damage, they say, that's not a big problem, it's not a big deal to me because I've seen that many times and I know how to manage that, and I'll take these practices and manage it locally at very low cost and effectively.
Dr. Vijayaratna, how has these measures to combat the fall armyworm been communicated to the farmers here in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, I think that is the most important factor when it comes to fall armyworm management. In our TCP project, which we are working with the Department of Agriculture, we have three major components. The first component is measuring the population so that we can study about the population dynamics. The second component is helping out the researchers to come up with identifying predators and parasitoids, and also mass scale production. The third component is the largest, that is the awareness building among officials as well as farmers. So we are trying to use all sort of strategies to increase the awareness of farmers by educating them how to handle this fall armyworm issue. Because once the farmers see the infestation in their field, the first what they try to do is try to spray pesticides. So we want to avoid that. We ask them to wait until the infestation goes to an economic loss level. So they can't assess it, but they have to get the assistance from the Department of Agriculture officials. And then if they need to spray or do something about it, they can go for the best low harmful pesticides rather than going for the highest toxic pesticide. And that is the most important thing. I think we have to educate and have to produce the material and have to work with Department of Agriculture and the Agrarian Services very closely on this issue.
How has the response been from the farmers? Of course, you have taken measures to inform the farmers. Is it a positive response from the farmers' end?
It's very positive response. Of course, at the very beginning there was panic because they didn't know this is a new pest, and then the visible damage is very high. But then later they found out even though the visible damage for leaves are very high, the economic loss is less than 10%, it's about 10 to 12% total loss when it comes to maize. So they know that they don't have to be panicked, they can handle the situation. And they get all the assistance from the department and the extension officials.
Well, Alan, you said that the response of Sri Lanka to this fall armyworm pest, or the Sena caterpillar, is exemplary. Of course, the entire country really banded together. Even here at Newsfirst, being a media organization, we launched a special campaign to find out and to combat the fall armyworm on proper measures. Speaking more about the measures that Sri Lanka has taken as a whole, what's your point of view regarding how we responded to this issue?
Again, very positive, very proactive. The fact, yesterday we were at the meeting with the Ministry of Agriculture, and they already presented results of research they've done on fall armyworm in Sri Lanka. To me, is nothing short of amazing. I mean, it's only been in the country a few months. It's only been identified and worked on, and already there are results they're presenting to us. So it's very forward-thinking. It's very proactive, getting out ahead of the curve, and again, looking for those sustainable solutions. I was also very impressed by the maturity of the discussions around pesticides, because it's not that we're opposed to pesticides, it's that in this case, the pesticides usually don't, well, the number a situation that's complex with pesticides, including their effectiveness, the costs, and their impact on both human health and the natural enemies. But just the maturity of the discussion around pesticides, as well as around compensation, I found very impressive. Many countries haven't quickly gotten to that situation, as I saw among the authorities in Sri Lanka, who quickly recognized that immediate urgent responses are not always the best, especially when we're looking for sustainable solutions. So the combination of a complete coherent approach to the situation, being out front, looking down the road and how to help farmers manage this sustainably, has left me truly impressed.
Dr. Wijayaratne, your point of view regarding Sri Lanka's response as a community as a whole to this issue?
We bet the community, especially the farmers who got really affected last time, and they are very confident that they can control this next time. And they are also responding well to the department's request not to do the staggered cultivation. They will go and if they are cultivating, they will cultivate at a certain time so that we can control the population. So they are responding well, and they are well connected with the Extension Service and the Provincial Department of Agriculture, and the Agrarian Service. They are doing a wonderful work, and we are helping them on leaflets and then translating our documents to Sinhala and Tamil language, and I think we can handle this issue very well.
Of course, it's important that we as Sri Lankans handle this issue very well, because it deals with the agricultural sector, which is in ways very, very important for the economy of the country as well. We will be back after this short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching BizFirst in Focus. Welcome back. You're watching BizFirst in Focus. Today's discussion was focused on the fall armyworm pest that started spreading here in Sri Lanka. It's commonly known as the Sena caterpillar, and we were lucky enough to have with us two very distinguished people in this area, two representatives from the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations. In our final segment of this conversation, Alan, well, there are modern technologies available now, and how can modern technologies be used to maybe disseminate information and combat this fall armyworm, especially speaking in terms of media? Now, we here at Newsfirst, we organized the Gamather initiative to spread information and to conduct a research with the Ministry of Agriculture regarding the fall armyworm. How do you see this? Is it important? How important is it?
Yeah, media communications and the role of media is extremely important in this pest and in general in agriculture, because it's a way of reaching many people, especially farmers and those involved in all the maize value food chain. So it's extremely important that the media, as you're doing here so well, project a very, very positive, forward-thinking, optimistic solutions to farmers and to the country, and stay away from what's too often done in the media, a kind of panic situation where you want to throw fire or gasoline on a fire to make even more of a news. This obviously is not useful, because when that's done, then the inappropriate actions are taken by everybody when it's a panic situation. So helping farmers and the government authorities understand that there are sustainable solutions there and that we can help do that. It'll take a little bit of time to get there, but we're on the correct path, I think, is a very important message, and you and other media have a tremendous role to play in that. But in terms of technologies, I'd just like to mention one other tool that we've developed in FAO, and this is an application. It's called the Fall Armyworm Monitoring and Early Warning System that we've discussed with authorities here. In fact, we're going to translate it into local languages. This application is available now on Google Play Store in Android, and it does two things. One, it helps collect the data, information of fall armyworm infestation in the fields. So the Ministry of Agriculture officials, even down to farmers, can enter the data on this application with a GPS location, and we can accurately map in the country the level, quantitatively, levels of infestation across the country, both the larvae in the crops as well as the adults in pheromone traps. This is tremendously important because finally we'll have very accurate patterns of infestation levels as well as movement across the island. So for example, if fall armyworm migrates across the island due to cropping patterns, we'll see this on the map. People put the data in, we'll have a real-time map of fall armyworm on the island and be able to make predictions and help farmers an early warning. So that's a very important part of this application, is to be able to map accurately the infestations and make decisions about that. The other very important part of this application is that we provide information directly to extension agents and farmers about fall armyworm. So if you want to learn about it, you just go to the IPM icon and learn about, for example, the natural enemies we were talking about. Well, here are the photos, the names of them, and anybody can go to the application and learn it, and see the photos and learn, for example, here are important pathogens, the fungus that kills fall armyworm, and learn about these organisms directly from the app, and then learn how to use them. There's much more information in here. We're still developing it, and again, we're going to be translating it into local languages so that even farmers will be able to use it. So the new technology of the applications and smartphones creates a whole new world for us to be able to manage fall armyworm more sustainably. So the application is available on Google Play Store now for Android phones. We'll soon have an iOS version. It's absolutely free. There's no charge for downloading or using it ever. It's developed by FAO as a public good.
Dr. Vijayaratne, have the farmers been informed on how to use this? Has this information been sent out to the people that really need this information?
Yes, I think first we have to translate this application to local language, Sinhala and Tamil, and then we launch it in the FAO system. And then we are already started training, identifying people how to use this application. It's a very simple application. You can just, there's a few technicalities, but any common person can do that. There are few technicalities, like when you count the number of insects, you have to go for the right kind of pheromone trap. And in Sri Lanka, we have not been using that trap, so we gave advice to the Department of Agriculture how to purchase that and where to purchase it, and now they are in the process of procuring that.
So, final question from me to you, Alan. Looking forward into the long-term combating of the fall armyworm, like you said, it's the chances of eradicating this pest are close to impossible. So, in the long term, how hopeful are you regarding the collaboration between the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations and the local authorities here with the farmers? How do you see this?
I'm very enthusiastic. Again, based on the response that I've already seen in Sri Lanka from the farmers, from the authorities, and also again from what we already know about fall armyworm. It's new to Sri Lanka, but in Central America, farmers have been managing it for hundreds of years. So we have vast experience, and we know farmers can do it sustainably with local resources, smallholders, farmers who have half a hectare of maize. So we know it can be done, and when we see the fertile ground like we see in Sri Lanka for implementing that type of sustainable approach, it's a recipe for success.
Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you very much, Dr. Vijayaratne, for joining us on our show. And that's it from BizFirst in Focus for today. Of course, do join us again next week. Until then, take care and God bless.